my preferences. And so I don't create a safe environment.
Mhm.
And I'm not building the same relationships with this group of people that I am with that group of people. And so that's a big part of it, is really looking and saying, like, how am I going to grow and improve as a person? Yeah, that's what I want to say. Yeah.
Okay. I'm I'm over here working on technical difficulties. Our Facebook Live feed froze, so I was reconnecting
Oh,
them.
okay. Yeah.
Um, so here is a question from Peggy. Based on your comments, we know that racial stereotypes woven into culture's fabric impact the way white kids grow up and the beliefs they have. Please comment on how those same beliefs impact the self-image of Black youth and how they can be helped to not internalize such views.
James, I'll give it to you because you were talking about that before about the generational trauma.
Yeah, one of the things you see in Black America, you see this movement for more Black movies, more Black stories and books, and you even starting to see Black women saying, you know what, I'm just gonna let my hair be natural. I'm gonna stop trying to straighten my hair. It's almost like this self love, so to speak, right? Because what's really happening is that people are learning. It's a response to where they're saying, you know what, Black is beautiful, and so why am I trying to change certain elements to please people or to try to satisfy someone so that they will accept me and so forth. And so part of the reason I think these things happen, and you see this in Black homes and Black families, where they'll say, you're beautiful, baby. I don't care what they say. You're intelligent, where they're trying to affirm, they're trying to build up, because the images that they see on TV, the things that they see in the magazines, the videos, is going contrary. It's saying that this is beautiful. It's saying that this is what we value, but we don't value here and there. And so I think that's one of the things that parents have to do. That's one of the things I do with my sons, is that, I'm constantly trying to affirm them, trying to encourage them, trying to help them find their voice. For a lot of African Americans, you go through with this trauma because people are always trying to fix you. You didn't say that word right, or something you did wasn't appropriate. And so people are judging you before you even open your mouth. And then when you open your mouth, well, that's not how you say that word. Well, in England, they would say that the way you said tomato wasn't right. Like who's the judge? Who really controls this, right? And so when you go through that, you're battling these things to really find your voice and really to be able to stand tall. And so I think as parents, when we're dealing with young people, is that we do have to help them to find their voice, to be able to stand tall, to know that they're intelligent. And we have to be able to put them in environments that value these things.
Mhm.
That's a big component. You have choice. You don't have to keep going to a school or to an environment where that is just not conducive to your mental health.
And I think one of the
Yeah.
differences too, when you're thinking about Black children and white children, is that Black children have that internal trauma, right? And sometimes self-loathing, right? Because over time, sometimes we've taught Black people to not like other Black people. So we have that. And then we have the outside world reaffirming, right, that our Blackness is somehow something to not be proud of, right? And to just be
Mm-hmm.
thrown away or to be discarded in some way. Whereas when you're talking about white children may have that kind of personal, I don't feel so good today. I don't like myself. I'm not enough, but they're not getting that additional external force that's reinforcing and validating the thoughts that they have about themselves, because out in the world, whiteness is not looked at in the same way that Blackness is.
Nice. Great.
And I'll say this real quick, I've been in education for 20 years. That 80% of the teachers in education are white, and they're coming
Yes.
from neighborhoods where they haven't been exposed to diversity. And then you're throwing them into urban settings where they have not been in a multicultural context. They have not developed the intelligence and the skill set and the capacity to be able to work in a multicultural environment. So it's just like disaster. So kids and parents already have a bad relationship with the school, right? And so now you're trying to teach, and kids are not going to learn from someone that they feel don't care about them. And so you got impatience, you got all these things colliding. And I've witnessed to where, if it's Jimmy over here and he looks like me, I give you room to have a bad day. But if you're Jamal, it's just two strikes against you, right? It's like, it's one thing to be Black when we're talking about the issue of racism and class, right? Classism is real, racism is real. So to be Black and broke, right? You got two whammies against you, right? Not only are people judging you before you even step in, but then you got to deal with the whole aspect of that you have no capital, no financial capital, all these other things that you need to uplift yourself out of this particular environment or condition.
It's interesting that you say that, James. I taught in urban schools for 18 years, and I've seen that difference between, the white kids who come to school and the Black kids. They learn that your white teachers don't care about you. Go to, I want you in this class with this Black teacher. And I had many students placed in my class knowingly and told it's because you're Black. They put you there, they put that student there because you're Black. Teachers would ask, why can you talk to that student that way, but I can't? Well, it's because I have a different relationship and different understanding. If you build an understanding with that student, you can be as upfront with them as I am. It's not Black or white. It's about relationships and really, teaching from the heart. Susan asked the question, so for those of us who are wanting or willing to move things forward and bring others along, we must take our cues from the people of color in our community. What can we do better? Where do we start? It isn't like we can't just adopt a friend to expose us to new experiences. What are your suggestions? And I think that you all have touched on this a little bit, but maybe you can add something to it.
Well, I think first you have to be educated, right? You have to get educated. I think one of the things that you heard a lot of Black people say in the wake of George Floyd was like, I'm not here to educate you. I'm not going to teach you. I am not going to be your comfort. Because what happens in these spaces is that, like she said, rent a Black friend, right? You want to lean on Black people to help you, right? But again, now you have taken away our ability to seek comfort, because we have to give you shelter, right? So we have to be your shelter. We have to be your comfort. We have to make sure that you understand so that you feel better, so that you can go along with your life. So the first thing is to get educated. There are many, many books and movies and Netflix and everything that you can go and read, especially about what James was saying about the history and the context, so that when you're having these conversations, why it is somebody is saying what they're saying, right? It's not that, you can't just say, well, my family didn't have your family picking cotton. No, but generations back, yes, and how it impacts today. So education is first. Second is to diversify your village, right? So no, you don't go rent a Black friend, you go genuinely have an intentional conversation trying to get to know someone, right? So you have to go out and intentionally try to increase the diversity around you, so that you don't have these worries. You don't have to worry about, well, do I rent a Black friend, right? Or my best friend is Black, but that person you've never spoken to, never had a conversation with around race or any of these types of issues. So get educated, diversify your village, and then you can then have a conversation from a place of knowledge. It doesn't mean that you're going to know everything. I'm Black. I don't know everything, right? About being Black and about Black history. I'm from Jamaica originally, so I wasn't born in this country, right? So I have a lot to learn about the history, but I know enough that if I go and have a conversation with someone, I have a context around it. And so they understand that the intention behind me having that conversation is a good one. So to me, those are the things that you need to do to initially just start. And then it just becomes part of who you are, right? So I don't intentionally go out and seek white people as friends. I just have white people as friends. That's just, you know, I think for Black people, that's just our existence. We grow up in spaces where we're generally one or one of few. And so that's just part of who we are, right? I have everybody, right, as a friend. So if something happened, I don't have to go look for a white friend. I have a white friend. I pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them. So I think that's the type of thing to look at, that when these situations happen, are you having to go out and seek because just living your life daily, that has never been important to you, right? So be intentional about creating these relationships.
I think that's really important, Kelly, what you said, be intentional. I think that's so important when you're dealing with issues like this. You know, building relationships with intention, and it's not at surface value. You know, I think that that's so important, and a great takeaway in this discussion, to be intentional in whatever you do. So we were back up on Facebook, and I know James has to leave. We're a little bit over. Any closing remarks on this topic from Kelly, James, or Tanya?
James?
Yeah, I'll go because I gotta run. You know, I would, you know, I think I always use that word intentionality, you know, and I also say this to some of my friends. I say, you know, we figured out how to put a man on the moon. We figured out some pretty amazing stuff. Like, we can figure this out.
Yes.
We have to be intentional, as Kelly said, about diversifying the things that we do. And it requires work, but it's an important work that I think we all have to be willing to engage in. You know, I think, you know, especially those who like to go to church, try going to a different church. You know, maybe go to an African American church that's predominantly African American, and you'll be surprised, because if you're like one of the only there, they're gonna love you so much. They're gonna be like, "You coming back next week?" And man, we're so glad you came, and so forth. You can be like, "Man, I never got this much love going to church." You know, I mean, it will happen organically and so forth. Like, I'm a person where it's like, I don't know a lot about this. You know, I'll just say, "Man, how are you doing?" I'll find something I have in common. You like basketball, this and that. Let me get your number. Let me send you a friend request on Facebook, and you start learning about their life. It can happen organically. It doesn't have to be so difficult, because the reality is that we're a lot alike when we talk about just this whole idea of this illusion of race. We're so much alike that we'll be so shocked. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm sitting there listening to my music 24/7, or I'm doing this and that. Like, we have a lot of the same goals and values and visions. And so that's what I was saying. But thank you, guys.
Bye, James. It's so nice to meet you.
Thanks for being here. And
yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll come back though. Just have me, we didn't get to get into it really, but
we could do this for another hour, right? We could do this for another hour.
Sure.
I mean, you know, we could, but
yeah.
Take care.
All right, thanks, guys.
Good luck with the basketball, James. Your son's playing basketball. He's got to get to the game.
Oh, okay. I understand.
I just wanted to quickly say, you know, one of the things that I've been practicing, because, you know, you walk through the grocery store and you find yourself judging somebody based on how they dress or, you know, whatever. And one of the things that's really been helping me with that is I step back and I think, this is just another person just trying to survive, because all we are is just all trying to survive this life and, you know, live the best that we can given our circumstances. And sometimes that really helps me when I find myself starting to judge somebody, is this is just a soul that is just trying to survive just like I am. And that's truly helped.
Yeah.
So Susan says, don't laugh, but I've gotten a great deal of information from shows such as Blackish, Black AF, and other Netflix series highlighting Black culture and history issues. Thank you both so much for sharing your insights. It has been really enlightening. Listen, those shows really bring
right. They show you what it's like.
Yeah, really. Those are great shows. So we understand. But I think
say something, Kelly, before you wrap up.
Yeah.
that, you know, we talked about a couple of things today, and we talked about unconscious bias, and we talk about racism. And so I want to wrap those two things and say, for unconscious bias, we all have a responsibility. I have biases, you have biases.
Yes.
Every single person has unconscious bias. Nobody can run from it, right? We all have that. So we all have a responsibility to disrupt unconscious bias. When we're talking about racism, Black people can't fix racism, right? We don't have the power. We're not in the power structures to be able to dismantle racism. So when we're talking about racism and how we move forward in terms of racism, we really need white people to step up. And you have to, and I know that one of the things is that you have to figure out, like, what is the benefit to you, right? Because white people benefit from the ravages of slavery and all of the things that have happened. And so that's a hard conversation. So when James was saying, you know, doing this internal reflection, it's like, how do I give up the privileges that I have with being white to dismantle those systems to put people on equal footing? And that's what you see that's happening now, where it's like, when they say, you know, I want my freedom, like, you're free, right? You're free. What are you talking about? You want your freedom. But it's this thing that James was saying in the beginning about, you know, where am I basically on this level? And so if I'm coming down here, what does that do if we're now equal, right? When for so many years it's been like this. And so there's a fear of closing that gap. And until white people, the white community, addresses that fear and sees the benefit to closing that gap, that's where the rub's going to be.
Yeah, that's a great conclusion. I'm sitting here thinking, you know, you said we all have biases, and thinking about Tanya saying, you know, sometimes when I respond to people, when I'm out, you know, I think really acknowledging.
Not alone.
Yeah,
She's not alone. We all do it.
Absolutely. We all have biases. And so, you know, I think the challenge is, we think that we don't. You know, we're saying we know that we do, but then we're faced with a time when oh man, why did I respond like that? Why did I do that? And then you have to check yourself.
Yep.
So I think that's when we're uncomfortable. So we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and we have to be reflective enough and transparent enough with ourselves to check ourselves and allow our circle and our village to hold us accountable and check us as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Tanya, go ahead. I'll let you close out. I opened.
No, I have nothing more to add to that. That was a beautiful wrap up, and we're so right that you know, we have to be humble. We have to admit when we think a certain way, and we have to expand our horizons and get to know people, and that's really what this is about. So thank you, everybody. This is so important to me. It's important to everybody that we continue these conversations. And thank you, Kelly. Dr. Kelly, thank you. Kelly, Charles Collins, thank you, James, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
and thanks for having me.
Be looking for the date of our last part of this series. That information will come out in the next month or so. But until then, we are all responsible for doing the work. So let's get committed and close that gap. So thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, you're still on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, I am. Let me close out.